And you're ready to go.
All right, good morning. My watch says 8:31 for the calling to order the August 28th, 2020 meeting of the Southborough Board of Selectmen. This was not a regularly scheduled meeting, but we have a couple of items that required our immediate attention. And I'm first going to read our required prologue. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Southborough Board of Selectmen will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner by finding the meeting at www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. And so with that, we are in session. We've got two items on a consent agenda. I'm going to hold both of those because I think both of them are worthy of a little bit of discussion. We're joined this morning for the first item by our DPW Director, Karen Galligan, and by Evan White. And Evan, I don't know your title in Ashland, but we can find that out in a second.
I'm the project engineer with Ashland. Okay.
And this is for the item, the approval of a request from the Town of Ashland, emergency drinking water connections. And I guess maybe Karen or Evan, just give a quick thumbnail sketch of why we find ourselves here on Friday morning, August 28th.
Evan, you can chime in whenever you need to. This has happened in the past where we've had that Ashland's had needed water. They have a groundwater system with pumps, wells, and we have a feed that they're doing permanent that you guys have talked about a little bit before. So that isn't in place yet. Had it been in place, had we not had the drought, it would have been in place this year. We had to stop them from finishing that work in the pump station because of the drought. We've been pumping so much. I didn't want them to take any pumps offline to install the new pumps. So this should be the last time that we have an emergency order, because after this, they'll be able to just take water through our other full-time permanent agreement. And that's already set. The rates are set based on a whole different IMA. So this right now is because of the drought, their wells, I believe, are, having trouble recharging. I don't know if any of the rain probably help a little bit, but as of, I think, September 1st, they can take water per the DEP. They still have to get the MWRA approval, but they need our approval and the DEP's approval to get the MWRA. Is that right, Evan?
Yes, that's correct. Ashland's currently declared a water emergency. We're not allowing any lawns to be watered in town. We've notified several residents, given out citations. So yeah, we need the I believe this is the fourth time you guys have come to our rescue here. So we really appreciate it on behalf of the residents of Ashland, to the people of Southborough.
Okay, so I'm going to open it up to questions and comments in a second, but just let me, and for both Karen and Evan, basically for various structural and other reasons, the Town of Ashland has a water emergency number one. Number two, there's an agreement that's been in place for a number of years between the town of Southborough and the town of Ashland that addresses situations like this because of Southborough's involvement with the MWRA. We have often excess capacity and the ability to provide water to the town of Ashland. The water will be provided at a market rate determined by the MWRA, and so as a result, there'll be no cost to the taxpayers of the town of Southborough for providing this water. It will be paid for by the town of Ashland, and there'll be no ancillary cost to the town of Southborough. Did I state that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. All right. With that, Ms. Braccio, any questions or comments?
Sorry. Just one question, I guess. So, Karen, the billing, how is the billing going to be processed through this? Is this processed through the DPW? Or is it processed through our normal accounting procedures?
Right now, when these emergency ones happen, it's a little special. What we do is we send something, because it's not our regular rates, obviously, because they're taking more, and with the escalation of the way our rates work. I think this will have to be the way it's done, is that we send the treasurer collector the information of what needs to be billed, and they actually do a hand bill and they send it over to Ashland. But with the enterprise fund, I don't think anything would be different this year. But basically the collection always comes back to us. The Ashland ends up paying a surcharge this one last time to MWRA because it's an emergency connection. And then that goes direct to them. Ashland pays us the water and all our kind of wear and tear. And then we report it to DEP at the end of the year, the calendar year annual report we have to give.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Malinowski.
So in the municipal aid agreement under number 4, I had some questions related to the MWR water rate in effect on the date of this agreement, which was signed in 2007. And I followed up yesterday to see if I could get information if we have an assigned amendment with the town of Ashland to make sure that we're using the 2020 rates versus the 2007 rates. And it does not appear that we do have an assigned amendment or assigned extension with the town of Ashland. And so I think throughout me asking some of these questions, I was getting some conflicting answers, but I think Karen just clarified that we actually do bill Ashland for the water usage and the electric usage. And then MWRA bills Ashland for the surcharge. So I just want to make sure that the town of Southborough will be billing for and receiving the current 2020 rate as Karen Galligan defined it yesterday or this morning.
I was just gonna say this, so that
Sorry.
sheet this morning, that will be the rate we'll pay off of, and we'll attach it to the amendment. Basically, when you guys vote, not the amendment, when you guys vote to do this, that 2007, that page, I should have given it, but I was thinking we were using the permanent IMA. It didn't kind of dawn on me that we were still in emergency. That sheet just goes with it, and then that's what Ashland knows they're getting billed on.
So we don't need to have any sign-offs between us and Ashland to make sure that we're billing and getting paid the accurate rate.
No, we don't. When Ashland sends that to MWRA, because MWRA wants to make sure that towns aren't kind of overcharging other
Right.
people, they'll look at what we've done, and that's what they want. So Ashland will send basically, hey, here's our IMA and our current rate to MWRA. They'll give their final approval, and then they can start taking water.
Okay, so I guess my concern is that it doesn't exactly say that in the aid agreement, at least how I'm reading it under number 4. It says, unless that's considered an extension or renewal, Um,
I think we've kind of been using it as a renewal because
Okay.
every time since 2007 that it's been used, we've just attached that one Excel sheet. And you guys vote to let them have the water under that agreement, and we
Okay.
just attach the Excel sheet and off it goes.
okay. Thank you.
And Mr. White, Karen's responses to the question, is that consistent with your understanding of
Yeah,
how the pricing will work?
right, yeah, we were planning on paying current rates, so that's consistent with how I understand it, anyway.
And Chelsea, I think the easiest thing is when we make our motion to approve this, we'll indicate that that payment will be reflected by 2020 rates.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Shea.
Thank you. So I guess the only question I have, just Karen confirming at the connection point between the two systems, there will be a meter there, so we know exactly what Ashland is using for water consumption.
Yes, and actually that's already been set up. That was their contractor, Ashland's contractor, happened to be available to set it up once they saw that they were going to start needing it. So it's all in place right now.
And we've had this connection in the past. There hasn't been any issue with water chemistry with MWRA water and Ashland water that's in the pipes. That all works out okay?
No, we haven't had. I haven't heard of anything, Evan.
No, I'm not that I'm aware of. We haven't come across it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Stivers.
I do have a few questions. I guess taking a cue from our chairman, I tried to go back and look at the agreements of what was in place here. And it seems to me there are some potential gaps. Chelsea had pointed out one of them, and that best I can tell from the paperwork we've gotten, we don't have a current municipal aid agreement in place here because the paperwork to amend that is not in place. So I'm all in favor of supporting our neighbors in Ashland with this, but I think it's worthwhile to make sure we've got appropriate paperwork in place. And so maybe a follow-up with town council or someone is to get an updated amendment to this, even though maybe the intent is not to need to use it again. Also, I see that the latest agreement I can find with us and MWRA expired in 2016. There's again, a question in terms of the MWRA water use agreement that I saw a copy of in this material. So is there an issue relative to, current MWRA agreement that we have? And this agreement, municipal aid agreement, requires approval by MWRA advisory board. And I'm on the advisory board. I haven't seen any conversation with the advisory board about this over the last year here. So again, my main concern is making sure we've got the paperwork in place for all the pieces that need to fit to make this happen legally. If any question comes up later, it's to our mutual advantage to make sure that we've got all the right documentation in place. Also, I'm trying to figure out from the numbers that Karen has provided what the net payment to Southborough is for this. And my calculation says it's about $192,000. Is that the right number, Karen? Ex water cost. Karen, you're muted.
I'm looking at this Excel sheet. So they're gonna pay us $3.63 per 100 cubic feet. So it's whatever they actually use.
Okay,
They really never collected in the past more than, or used more in the past than like, a few hundred thousand.
But they've requested 200,000 gallons at this point. Is that right? Or cubic feet at this point? Whichever, I can't remember.
So this is worked out as a 750,000 gallons based on 36,000, I think, over 180 days. Like, however it's worked out.
Right. Yeah.
In that sheet, but it's based on a 36,000.
But sort of the override, the Southborough cost for the pipes and pump and electricity and all that kind of stuff was like 4 cents in this latest thing that we just got today, 4 cents per cubic foot. And so you multiply that times the, whatever, I can't remember the units here, but I did a rough calculation and said the cost above the water, the payment to Southborough was $192,000.
Oh, that they have to pay MWRA the 10%, you mean the cost
Nope.
above?
Nope. We get a fee for, you know, using our system basically above the water cost.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
Yes, and so that's 19 cents per 100 cubic feet. And that depends on, so that's based on their usage, not on an automatic set amount.
Right, but I'm saying that the latest sheet we got today for 2020 shows 200,000 gallons a day for 180 days, or 36 million gallons, right? That's the expectation
Sure.
for current use.
Yes, yes.
I did the math around that, and at the 4 cents net figure to Southborough above the water cost, and got $192,000.
If they use 36 million gallons, then yes.
And we think that, and Evan, do we think we will pump 36 million gallons here, or is that?
No, the hope is we won't have to use the water at all. You know, we're only going to turn it on when we need to, and between the hours of 6:30 in the morning to 2:30 in the afternoon. And we're expecting, if we do turn it on, it'd be usage similar to in the past, which I believe is about 150,000 to 200,000 gallons per day.
Okay. All right. So again, you know, I'm interested in knowing, you know, what the net to Southborough is, and if there's a different number there, Karen, I appreciate an update on that. From a customer standpoint or resident standpoint, again, I was trying to piece the pieces together out of the stuff we've gotten. So I'm obviously not a water expert, but this is through a hydrant connection at the end of Edgewood Road, right? Is that correct, Karen? Basically.
I'm not sure if it's on Edgewood or if we put it back up on what's Vine Street and Ashland.
Okay.
But
basically the end of our line down there next to Ashland.
Yes. Yeah. It's off our 12-inch loop.
Okay. And the constriction there, again, I'm not the expert here, but our hydrants are painted red, which tells me from other work I've done is that's 500 gallons a minute capacity coming out of the hydrant. Is that right?
No, our hydrants are just all painted red. We don't have a code to ours.
Okay, there's a national code for that stuff.
Yeah, we don't have that. All our hydrants are red.
So if we're pulling 500 gallons a minute or whatever out of that end of that line, is there no impact to the residents on Edgewood and that part of the world, Vine Street down there? I got to believe that's going to create a pressure issue, does it not?
So we have been, every time we've opened this, we've had no issues with it. Ultimately, when the permanent connection is on, it's basically with the bigger pumps that we're putting in the pumping station, the more capacity to pump, that will allow them to actually get probably a little more through. But yeah, our pipe size, which is 12-inch, is really the rate controlling step on what they can get through there. And because it's a hydrant to hydrant, you're talking a 6-inch stub into a 4-inch hose, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You're that's basically right now their restrictions are based on the 4-inch
limiting factor. Okay. I guess I've got questions that I won't go into now about the pricing calculation that you've done, but just sort of a offline.
Yeah,
I think that's
did that ages ago, so it's a good question. I can try to put my way back hat on and see if I can remember enough of it.
One question related to that is that John Butler did an analysis a while back on water rates that created, I thought, a good adjustment to the rate structure in Southborough. And I'm wondering if it makes sense to get John to maybe take a look at the pricing here for Ashland Water, since we're going to be supplying that going forward, I think.
There's a different IMA altogether on that. And there's a different rate structure for that than this, than what we have here. So that you guys had approved in I mean, it wasn't this exact board, but the board approved that before, and so did Ashland and DP and MWRA
Yeah.
would have looked at it too.
Again, I would like to understand all this stuff better. I don't want to hold up this process, but I think there's some interesting issues there. And longer term, for example, I'm curious, does Ashland see itself applying for entry to MWRA for water service? We're actually just dealing with that with Burlington, I think it is right now, bringing them into the MWRA water system. And there are a number of interesting issues related to that in terms of cost of entry, et cetera, which is always a hot button to negotiate. So again, I'd be
I
curious.
think Ashland already had to pay all that, didn't you, Evan? You guys have, they
Yeah.
are going to be a customer of MWRA.
Yeah, we're working on the permanent connection right now. We're expected to be done with that in Thanksgiving, I believe. We're hoping for Thanksgiving.
So that makes Ashland an MWA water community at that point?
Right.
Interesting. I didn't remember that. Okay. Again, I'll follow up, Karen, offline with you about some of these other questions, but I don't want to hold up this process. But I think there, again, as long as it doesn't affect the water pressure for the residents in that part of town, I think that was my primary concern. That's it for me. Thanks.
All right. Anything else by anyone having listened to questions and comments from other folks?
And Marty, just one thing, just to pick up on the last point there. So again, as part of Ashland's becoming a permanent community, upgrades to one of our pumping stations is required, but that work can't happen because the pump station is so heavily used right now. But we expect that work to complete by Thanksgiving, the pump station upgrades.
Yes, that will be done because they've done all the other work. Did some work on one of our tanks. They did a tank site. They did a bunch of work with double barreling out by the station so that now we have a redundancy we didn't used to have. And then we just have the pump replacement. And I mean, obviously there was some piping to do with that that's been done, but we actually haven't replaced the pipes because our usage is so high up until like mid-September. And when it starts, and we were having that drought, it wasn't going to happen this year. Didn't make sense.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion?
I will move that we approve the emergency connection for the water for the town of Ashland. With the, as noted by Ms. Malinowski, that rates will be charged for current water usage rates through the MWRA.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All right. All in favor, Ms. Braccio,
Aye.
Ms. Malinowski,
Aye.
Mr. Shea,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
Aye.
and Mr. Healy is aye. Karen and Mr. White, thank you very much. And good luck both ways.
To all
Thanks,
of us.
everyone.
All right. Have a good weekends.
You as well.
All right. Next item is the outdoor dining application for Tommaso Trattoria and approve an alcohol license alteration of premises for outdoor service. This is something we thought was going to be coming earlier, but we're getting it at the end of August. It seems pretty consistent with the application we saw for Ola, which is right next door to Tommaso's. So starting off with Ms. Braccio, there's really not anyone to ask questions of, but any comments about the request?
I think it's great, Marty, and I know that we have talked about this prior about maybe looking into, once COVID's over and the emergency order is rescinded, finding a way to maybe be able to allow our businesses to be able to do this next summer. I can tell you, I was at Ola yesterday in the pouring rain and there wasn't an empty table outside. It's wonderful for our businesses to see this level of patronage. And I think it for another meeting, subsequent meeting, we should probably have a discussion on putting a process in place for next year. And again, I would hope the board would agree to be able to start that process, that once COVID's over, to be able to continue this for our businesses and allow them to have the additional, outdoor seating during the summers. So that's my only comment. I think this is great. I'm thrilled that Tomaso is going to do this. Obviously, Ola's shown that it can be done successfully with respect to the neighbors. So I'm fully on board. Thank you.
And what I'll say in response to that, Lisa, is that, and it's too bad Karen's not still on, because the grant that she sought for sidewalks, which we didn't get first time around, one of the real focuses of that grant program is exactly what you're describing, exactly what Ola did and what Tomaso's is doing, which is taking maybe excess space in parking areas, on streets and otherwise, and putting up semi-permanent barriers that allows for outdoor dining in appropriate weather conditions here in the Northeast. So yeah, I think that's a good idea for a future agenda item. Ms. Malinowski.
I'm happy to see that Tomaso's looking to have outdoor dining, so kudos to them. I saw in the packet that planning board had weighed in on a few conditions that they wanted Tomaso to conform with. I agree with them, and I don't know if we gotten any feedback from Tomaso, but I can't imagine that would hold anything up. And I don't know if we need to weigh in on those conditions, if we also want to see them happen, or how that works.
Again, I think similar to what we did with the previous item, that we can just make the motion that consistent with the conditions, because they did seem perfectly reasonable from the planning board, and I agree with you. I can't imagine that Tomaso's is going to have an issue with them.
No.
Okay, is that it, Chelsea?
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Shea.
No questions or comments. I hope they do very well.
Mr. Stivers.
Good idea. And again, I hope they're successful. And I agree that sidewalks are an interesting part of this, and we ought to work harder next time with sidewalk applications for funding to do more of this around town. Thank you.
Okay. So any additional comment before we get a motion in place? Seeing none, I will make the motion to approve the outdoor dining application from Tommaso Trattoria, and approve an alcohol license alteration of premises for outdoor service. Said application and approval consistent with the conditions that were outlined in the planning board's approval.
Second.
Additional discussion. All right, Ms. Braccio,
Aye.
Ms. Malinowski,
Aye.
Mr. Shea,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
Aye.
Mr. Healy is aye. So that's approved. And the one thing I neglected to say during the whole thing, in addition to the planning board, kudos to the other, to the fire department and the other officials and otherwise in Southborough, who obviously are as concerned as we are that our businesses have the ability to stay afloat and rush the approvals through as quickly as possible. So thank you to them as well.
Great. I just want to thank Lori Esposito, who's really helped us manage this process and get Tomaso's up and ready for this. And, we understand they're hoping to be doing that as soon as early next week.
All right, and the final thing before we entertain a motion to adjourn is the very nice news that Vanessa sent out about the $200,000 grant that the town, I guess on the shoulders of Mr. Parent, was
Indeed.
able to get through the green initiative for various LED lighting, and it's across the board for our schools, for the townhouse. I mean, just a terrific effort.
Thank you. I'll pass that on to Mr. Parent.
All right, I think we are done, unless there's anything else anyone wants to bring up on this nice, looks like I'm down in New Jersey still. It looks like a nice, it's a very nice Friday morning down here. It looks like a nice one up there as well.
That it is. And I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Braccio,
Aye.
Ms. Malinowski,
Aye.
Mr. Shea,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
Aye.
Mr. Healy is aye. We are adjourned. Have nice weekends, everybody.
Thank you
Have a
very
nice
much.
weekend.
Well, thank you.
Bye.